Good morning, Kenya. Rise and shine to the morning momentum, your daily dose of a comprehensive rundown of the top stories making the headlines. It is the 13th day of January, and if we are meeting for the first time this year, Happy New Year. Now, this is the morning momentum, and it is a daily compendium of local and international news, human interest stories, current affairs, and expert opinion. My name is Alphonse, Ouma. Let's take a look at the top stories on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. The elephant in the room, ODM decides. Officials say the Orange Party must declare its 2027 elections stand this year. Now, here's the dispute. Sources say a plot to suspend Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and Deputy Party Leader Godfrey Osotsi, who did not attend yesterday's meeting, was scuttled by moderates who argued it would further deepen divisions that have rocked the outfit since the death of party leader Raila Odinga last year. The committee expressed the intention to initiate structured negotiations with different political formations, beginning with UDA. Those were the sentiments of ODM party leader Dr. Oburu Oginga. Now, the Orange Democratic Movement is its Central Management Committee has sanctioned pre-election coalition talks with the ruling United Democratic Alliance, taking a step towards formalizing a deal to back President Ruto's re-election campaign in exchange for a share of government positions should the coalition win the next elections. That story is augmented for you on page 4 and page 5 of the Nation this morning. On page 10 and 11, hitches on first day of senior school admissions. Grade 10 learners began reporting to senior school yesterday, with some institutions reporting a low turnout amid complaints by parents about varied admission requirements, demands for extra fees, and inadequate facilities, including laboratories and dormitories. That story is on page 10 and page 11. On page 3 this morning, how nurse saved a life mid-flight. Now, Irene Jepchirchir was jolted by a distress call in a United Airlines flight headed for Boston, United States, asking whether there was a medical professional on board. With no response from the other passengers, the Kenyan nurse stepped forward, and her crucial intervention helped stabilize an ailing passenger as the flight cruised above the Atlantic Ocean. That story is augmented for you on page 3. On page 12 this morning, it's about law. Court derails state gravity train for private lawyers, drawing a fury. Now, the court has barred public agencies and counties from hiring private law firms for work that state councils and county attorneys can handle. We'll catch up with that on page 12. Let's get up close and candid with the Nation on page 2. Dark twist as officer kills man in front of his friends. Now, Nyakwama and Mutinda watched helplessly as life drained out of their childhood friend Adan, who was supposed to report to college. His family is demanding justice for his killing. Two suspects appear in a magistrate's court. IPOA files miscellaneous application seeking 21 days to complete probe. You'll catch up with that on page 2. On page 3 this morning, how Kenyan nurse bravery prevented tragedy mid-flight. Now, Medic downplays heroic act, says it is what she was trained to do. Jepchirchir responded to a call for assistance on a United Airlines flight headed for Boston, United States. Now, at 36,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, as most passengers settled into the monotony of a long-haul flight, a sudden call for medical help shattered the calm, throwing a United Airlines cabin into panic. A passenger had collapsed, and the announcement that followed over the intercom was tense and urgent. Is there a medical professional on board? That moment would turn Miss Irene Jepchirchir Masai's journey to Boston into a test of her training, instinct, and sense of duty. Popularly known as Cherry Masai, Miss Jepchirchir was traveling aboard the flight from Brussels to Boston on January 8th, returning to Massachusetts after spending the Christmas holidays in Kenya. Like most long-haul passengers, she was looking forward to the end of the journey when the calm was abruptly broken by a commotion several rows behind her. So you want to catch up with that human interest story, it's on page 3. Page 4 this morning, ODM opens door for 2027 coalition talks with Ruto. Now, Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and Deputy Party Leader Godfrey Osotsi did not attend the meeting, but Dr. Oburu clarified that the duo had sent their apologies. Party's top decision-making organ mandates Party Leader Oburu Oginga to spearhead negotiations with President's ruling UDA. That story is augmented for you on page 4. On page 6 this morning, Ruto, I built my Mount Kenya ties with Uhuru, not Gashagwa. Now, President launches 173 million shillings Nyota program targeting 6,000 youths. Now, dismissing slogans like one term or Kasongo must go, President says he built friendships during past functions. Now, President William Ruto yesterday dismissed claims by his former deputy, Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, that he helped him secure support in the Mount Kenya region. Dr. Ruto said no individual can claim to have introduced him to the area. And I quote, "Some people have been going around saying that they brought me to the mountain." End of quote, the president said. Dr. Ruto said that his relationship with the region dates back to his time as a deputy president during the tenure of former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, on page 7 this morning, state's use of goons will cause civil strife, Gachagua warns. Now, Electoral Commission accused of failing to live up to its mandate to ensure free and fair elections. Former DP says violence is being used to create fear-driven voter apathy to enable the incumbent to retain power. That story is augmented for you on page 7. All right, let's take a look at page 8 on the education sector. How 458 million shillings was lost in textbook supply scheme. Now, schools faulted for poor textbook stocking practices and not maintaining accurate records. Special audit finds that some schools received excess books while others got less. 27.9 billion shillings is the amount disbursed to the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development for the purchase of textbooks between the financial years 2020-2021 and 2023-2024. That story is augmented for you on page 8 of The Nation this morning. On page 10, Grade 10 learners join senior school on historic day. Now, the entry of grade 10 learners to senior schools signaled a new era. However, gaps in preparedness quickly emerged, ranging from teachers' shortages and delayed learning materials to confusion over admission requirements. That story is augmented for you on page 10. Let's take a look at the statistics. 1,000 is the number of parents. Take a look at more stories on The Nation this morning. On the expert opinion, meet the 29-year-old who feeds, employs, and trains a community. It's a human interest story there. It is a thriving enterprise built on grants or loans, built not on grants or loans, but on waste materials and zero-budget farming techniques. That story is augmented for you on page 16. Ladies and gentlemen, let us take a look at county news now on page 19 this morning. We start with Ouma Bay County. Now, teachers' unrest, mass Kuppet elections. Now, what was meant to be a routine democratic exercise descended into chaos on Sunday after a group of rogue teachers disrupted the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers Kuppet branch elections in Ouma Bay, forcing the exercise to be called off. In Turkana County this morning, deadly cattle raids empty schools in Turkana East. Now, schools remain deserted as fear grips Turkana East villages. Persistent bandit attacks in the region have forced families to abandon their homes. Now, at least 8 primary schools in Turkana East constituency remain closed after parents, teachers, and learners fled sustained and deadly cattle raids in area residents now described as bandits' paradise. The affected institutions include Lopi, Nadome, Napeitom, Kahuruko, Lokosmekori, and Lochakula primary schools, some of which have been completely deserted as insecurity worsens. Okay, now why 2026 will be the year of reckoning for Paul Mackenzie? Mackenzie and his co-accused face judgment on charges of radicalization, starvation, murder, and cruelty. With trials concluding and submissions pending, 2026 could finally determine Mackenzie's fate in the Shakahola deaths. That story is augmented for you on page 20. Now, let's take a look at what's happening in the international scene. Succession storm in Uganda as Museveni eyes re-election. Museveni is believed to favor his son Mukozi Kainerugaba as a successor. The election will be an important test of his political strength at a critical moment. Now, in Gambia, Myanmar made Rohingya lives hell. Now, Gambia on Monday told judges at the United Nations top court that Myanmar targeted minority Muslim Rohingya for destruction and made their lives a nightmare in a landmark case accusing Myanmar of genocide. It is the first genocide case the International Court of Justice is hearing in more than a decade. That story is augmented for you on page 22. Also this morning, Iran says US talks open, Trump weighs a response. Now, Iran said on Monday it is keeping communications open with the US as President Donald Trump weighed responses to a violent crackdown on protests that have posed one of the biggest challenges to clerical rule since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Let's take a look at business news now. Kenyan coffee records best price amid global shortage. Now, the total quantity auctioned by 73% to 4,452 tons. Gains followed a global slump in supply of after production disruptions in key markets. That story is augmented for you on page 23. And with that, we now take a look into some sporting action. We start with chess. Young Manyeki tipped for greatness in chess. Swedish Grandmaster Carlson concludes tour of Kenya. He has crossed prestigious 1900 rating mark and finished 10th in the global tournament. That story is augmented for you on page 30. Let's take a look at football. Hat-trick hero Sam Senyonjo comes good in Leopards stripes. Leopards enjoyed 3-point cushion at the top of the men's league standings. Ugandan forward overcame sluggish start to season and scored thrice in his team's 4-1 win over Tusker. You want to catch up with that story on page 31. And now on the cover page of the Daily Nation this morning, North and West African teams again dominate the final four. Now, this is about the 2025 AFCON semi-finals. Senegal play Egypt tomorrow in semis as hosts Morocco await Nigeria. West African teams have the most semis appearances with 54, followed by North African sides with 33. Now, also this morning, CAF to investigate cases of violence after conclusion of 2 quarterfinal matches. Now, violent confrontations at the conclusion of 2 of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinals at the weekend are to be investigated, with possible sanctions to be imposed, the Confederation of African Football said. Opposing players jostled with each other after Morocco beat Cameroon in Rabat on Friday, when Nigeria overcame Algeria in Agadir on Saturday. Now, with the story of CAF investigation, we come to the tail end of the morning momentum this 13th day of January 2026. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with us and for watching this broadcast. My name is Alphonse. Ouma. Bye-bye for now.
Younib TV, faith, inspiration, unity.